Denny Rahal, a meeting with the president, and 4 victories in the series at Indianapolis, Toronto, Mid-Ohio, and San Air. A pole position for the postponed Road America event last weekend has Bobby on top of the CART PPG IndyCar World Series standings by a single marker. In second place, Al Unser Jr. Al hasn't won yet this year, but has finished in the top 10 in all but one event and has finished in the top 5 on 6 occasions. Danny Sullivan comes in today third in points, only 2 behind Rahal. Back-to-back victories at the Meadowlands in Cleveland helped his cause. The only time this year he's finished out of the points was at Michigan International Speedway during the 500. It appeared for a while as if the Andrettis might fight for the PPG Cup this year as the Unzers did last year, but Michael has fallen to 4th in the standings, although he has finished 1st or 2nd in 4 events this year. Tied with Michael for 4th is his father, Mario. He's been in victory lane twice this year at Portland and at Pocono. After a dozen IndyCar races this year, only 6 points separate the top 5. The scene of today's 13th IndyCar race of the season is Michigan International Speedway, the world's fastest race course. The weather has been a problem for the past few days, but sunshine bathes this 2-mile tri-oval as we get set to bring you the Pepsi-Cola 250. 86, setting the standards with the most... We welcome you to Michigan International Speedway, located about 14 miles south of Jackson for the Pepsi-Cola 250 IndyCar race. As we indicated, the weather has been rainy the past couple of days, but today, sunshine and a warm for this time of year, 75 degrees. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bob Jenkins along with Jack Arute. As we come into this 13th IndyCar race of 1986, you just can't get the points any closer.
Bob, indeed. It's just as close as you could possibly get. But I think the thing that people will have to watch over the next couple of weeks is the calendar itself. With the rain out at Road America last week, they go from here to Road America. And that's going to be difficult because from there it's to Laguna Seca, then to Phoenix, and of course in November in Miami. So race teams, drivers, the crew chiefs, the mechanics, all of them are going to really have to have their act together to be able to stay in the points chase.
The heavy rains that we have had the past couple of days have washed away the rubber, and there is very little groove out there. Thus, the speeds weren't quite as fast in qualifying for this race as they were during the Michigan 500.
Well, they weren't, but still, if you take a look at the entire field and their qualifying average, this field is a tad faster than that in the Michigan 500. You can see it's just a little bit faster, but I think the thing that's really interesting is the fact that this race is only 250 miles. Now, that's different. Not since 1974 have the competitors here in the fall race gone 250. In the past, it's been only 200.
Gary Lee will be working the pit area for us during this race this afternoon. Let's go to him for his comments on pit road.
Starting inside row 6 is the walking wounded. Al Unser Jr. suffered a separated right shoulder last week in the rain at Elkhart Lake. So first, Al, a medical update.
We're doing okay. I have a sore right shoulder, and it's been difficult shifting and so on, but it's going to be okay for today.
Any special padding in the cockpit?
Well, we got some padding on my shoulder to try to keep the seatbelt from getting on the sorest part of my shoulder, which the seatbelt was hurting it the most, and so we got a pad on me to keep it away from my shoulder, and other than that, it's just going to go out there and grin and bear it. So.
Can you go the distance? Will somebody be standing by, maybe Papa, to drive relief?
Well, Dad's here, so, you know, maybe, but I think we'll be able to go the distance.
There must be some concern going to Elkhart Lake next weekend, then on to Laguna Seca if you can't ship.
Well, it should be healed by then, you know. We've been just within the last 4 or 5 days, it gets better every day and every day. So, you know, there Wednesday, I didn't think I was going to be able to drive Sunday, and so here I am, and I'm feeling real good. So.
I'm sure we'll see a gutsy drive. Have a good one.
Thank you very much.
Bob?
Thank you, Gary. Well, driving hurt is certainly nothing new to Al Jr.
No, remember a year ago when he went to Elkhart Lake, he severely injured his leg and he had to be lifted by Dennis Swan into the cockpit. That was Pocono, of course. And the other thing that Al Jr.'s got to be thinking about is his finish in this race last year. It almost knocked him out of the points chase. It was one of the worst of the season for him.
23 cars and drivers are standing by to compete in the Pepsi-Cola 250 here at Michigan International Speedway. And it's all being brought to you by After these messages. Back at Michigan International Speedway, where the cars are gridded on pit lane and will be moving out onto the racetrack in just a few moments. The weather partly cloudy here this afternoon, temperature about 75 degrees. Certainly a different day from yesterday when we had heavy rain in the morning, but it cleared long enough for qualifying to occur. Yesterday in qualifying here at Michigan International Speedway, among the first to qualify, Johnny Rutherford. He's a former track record holder here in Michigan. Yesterday's performance at 215.847.
And Johnny surprised a lot of people because he's running the team's only remaining car. Quite a surprise to run as well as he did with no cars to back up.
But then, bumping Johnny Rutherford from the pole position was Michael Andretti. He clocked in with a 218.314 mile-an-hour lap.
He was real quick in practice. In fact, his qualifying run was almost identical to his practice speeds.
Next to qualify was Roberto Guerrero in the True Value Emerson March. 218.321 miles an hour in his qualifying effort.
Now, Roberto has shown flashes of speed before, but no wins thus far. Maybe it'll change at Michigan this weekend. Guerrero across the stripe, 218.321. Then, it was Rick Mears' turn, the track record holder at 223 plus. He was the last driver up. You see, he'd lost his engine 30 minutes prior to qualifying and missed his scheduled qualifying slot. But with just minutes remaining in the session, he flew around the Michigan Oval and bettered Guerrero's speed by more than 1 mile per hour. 219.445. Not a new record, but fast enough to give him and Chevrolet their pole position.
So, on the pole for today's Pepsi-Cola 250 from Bakersfield, California, Rick Mears in the #1 Pennzoil Z7 March outside of row #1. In the True Value Emerson March, car #2, Roberto Guerrero. Row #2, Michael Andretti from Nazareth, Pennsylvania in the #18 Graco STP Lean Machine outside row #2. Scott Brayton in the #71 Living Well Fitness March. Johnny Rutherford starts on the inside of row #3 in car 21. Outside of row 3, Dennis Firestone in the #36 Raynor Lola. The 4th row, Emerson Fittipaldi in car #20 and Bobby Rahal in #3. The 5th row on the inside, Tom Steva in the 33 Skoal Bandit March. Outside of the 5th row, Mario Andretti, car #5, the Hannah Lola. The 6th row will be comprised of Al Unser Jr. in car #30 and Raul Boisel. The 7th row, Ed Pym in car #66 and Kevin Cogan in #7. The 8th row, A.J. Foyt in car #14 and Danny Sullivan in car #4. Row #9 will have Roberto Moreno in car #9 and Johnny Parsons in number 55. The 10th row will consist of Jeff Brabham in car #8 and Ari Leyendijk in 61. Row #11, Steve Chassie in #12 and Gary Bettenhausen in 24. All alone in row #12, Spike Gelhausen in car #10. Rocky Moran will not be competing in the race here this afternoon. And we do have one late note. Jeff Brabham will be starting back in the next to the last row. He has changed cars and engines. He won't be driving the Honda, but will be going with the Cosworth this afternoon. Let's go now to Robert Underwood, the Vice President of Michigan State University, for those famous words.
Gentlemen, your engine.
There is Roberto Moreno getting set. Michael Andretti, his car has been started. Scott Brayton, an excellent qualifying performance yesterday, will start outside of row #2. Scott clocking in at better than 216 miles an hour. There is Johnny Rutherford with the thumbs up. Johnny was the winner, of course, of the Michigan 500 held earlier this year and always competes well on the ovals. Emerson Fittipaldi is getting set to go in his Marlboro March, car #20, and those are the eyes of Bobby Rahal, the current points leader and certainly the hottest driver in IndyCar racing at this moment.
Bob, as we take a look at the front row, of course, Rick Mears, as we said, putting the Chevrolet on the pole for the second time. That was at Sanair, was the first time in history that the Chevrolet nameplate in its racing configuration, not the stock block, but the one that was built by Roger Penske. The question now is, can he sustain it for 250 miles? Remember at Sanair, he ran well but broke early. They were on a plane going back to the States before the race was even over. We'll just have to wait and see if they've solved those problems and if they're able to move into the next step in research and development, and that's to have an engine that'll finish.
The pace cars begin to move away. Behind the pace cars, the field will come onto the track and have a couple of warm-up laps before getting the green flag for 125 laps of racing on this 2-mile high bank trioval here at Michigan. Turns banked at 18 degrees. So the field begins to move away, and we'll be right back for the start of the Pepsi-Cola 250 in just a moment. Are on the racetrack. Tom Sneva, however, did have a problem getting started. All the rest of the field had moved onto the racetrack, and Tom was still on pit road. They did get the car started, and Tom now moves into his assigned 9th starting position.
Not the best way to have to start this race, knowing that you have a close call like that before you even take the green flag. But take a look at the wing on Tom Sneva's car. It is indeed the narrowest one that any driver is using here on a super speedway. That almost is becoming his signature as much as that old nickname, the Gas Man.
A lot of interesting rear wing combinations here this weekend. Roberto Guerrero also is running very little rear wing to eliminate the drag and to thus increase the speed. Sneva has moved up into his starting position. However, there is an indication that he might be coming in for another stop. No, he stays out on the racetracks. Dennis Firestone also had a tremendous qualifying performance yesterday.
Got to be one of the best stories of the weekend. Dennis Firestone, who separated or had a near separation of a shoulder at Sanair just 2 weeks ago. He planks the Raynor car all the way up there in row 3. And it was an identical qualifying time as that of the inside man, Johnny Rutherford. And the great story was Firestone said he really put the extra added oomph into the qualifying effort because he wanted to make it onto the starting grid for ESPN.
Well, he did it in fine fashion. Dennis, of course, injured in the Sanair race, but has recuperated from those injuries and is now ready to compete here at Michigan.
You know, you've got to remember, too, Bob, as we alluded to in the opening, 250 miles. You've got to take your black book, so to speak, and try and find an addendum, because it hasn't been since 1974 that you've run that far here in this race. And the cars have changed so much. The ground effect's much stronger now. So a lot of the crew chiefs are going to have to calculate much more carefully than they normally do fuel consumption, fuel mileage, and decide do they go 2 or 3 stops.
It'll be a minimum of 2 and possibly 3 stops, and that, of course, depends upon the amount of caution flags that we have during this race. And quite honestly, this racetrack has seen many caution flags during most races here.
There is a good look at Rick Mears, his Pennzoil Z7, number 1, that comes out of Roger Penske's stable. Not the greatest of years for Rick Mears, but still he's really brought that Chevrolet power plant up to full speed from drafting board to racetrack operation in less than a year. That's an incredible feat for any sort of operation, especially for Roger Penske and company. And I know it's got to be a little tough for Rick to sit behind the wheel of a car that maybe isn't as proven as the March-Cosworth combination, but he seems to thoroughly enjoy it.
They'll go at least one more lap before getting the green. Field coming by the 4th turn position. And alongside Rick Mears on the front row will be Roberto Guerrero and that True Value Emerson March. And Roberto, you'll recall, led the Michigan 500 earlier this season, so he likes this racetrack, and I think is another one that certainly has a good shot at winning this relatively short race on the high banks.
Another driver that will have to at least have his sets high would be Johnny Rutherford. There he is, number 21, the Alex Morales Vermont American Tool Special. He's got to be buoyed really high. He won the Michigan 500 here, although it's got to sit in the back of his mind, as we said, that he doesn't have a backup car. That's the same car he's going to have to finish the rest of this season. 5 more races behind the wheel of that car. But he won here at Michigan, and he's a little bit more pumped up than usual coming back here.
Johnny has always turned in good performances here at Michigan International Speedway. Field now moving through corner number 2 onto the backstretch. The backstretch is flat, and it's a straightaway, but there is no straightaway here in front of us. It's a tri-oval shaped configuration, and as we said, the turn's banked at 18 degrees.
And this track is very deceiving. It looks wide to the viewer. It looks like there's a lot of room to maneuver and pass. But when you're traveling it over a football field a second, it gets very, very narrow. When you add to it the aerodynamics of these cars and the stale wind that comes from behind these automobiles, it's a game of precision driving for these race car drivers, and they say that it gets narrow quickly, especially in the corners.
Field beginning to pick up speed just a little bit. The pace car has pulled well ahead of Rick Mears and Roberto Guerrero on row number 1, and the pace car is pulling off the racetrack onto pit road. Rick Mears leads the 22 other starters off of turn number 4 into the tri-oval, looking for a green flag that will begin this Pepsi-Cola 250, and the green flag is out. We're racing. They're 4 wide going into corner number 1. Rick Mears has jumped out into the lead, and we saw several cars have relatively good starts, among them Emerson Fittipaldi, who went to the inside and gained several spots. He's back in 5th position as they head down the backstretch on the very first lap. Rick Mears is leading going into turn number 3. It's Michael Andretti running second.
And he got a jump on the start there. He got by Roberto Guerrero to take over that second position, and he's beginning to close on Rick Mears, your leader, as they come across the stripe the first time.
Mears, Michael Andretti, Roberto Guerrero, then Scott Brayton, Emerson Fittipaldi, and Mario Andretti, and then a battle 3 wide going into corner number 1.
Michael took a peek to the inside as they headed into turn 1, thought better of it, and stays just sandwiched. It doesn't look like he's real close, but traveling at that speed, he is behind Rick Mears.
Mears set the pace in the early going of the Michigan 500, but the car expired on him later in the race, and he's setting a tremendous pace here in the early going of this one also. Here they come off of corner number 4 once again to complete lap number 2. It's still Mears in the lead, running very close together for that second spot, and Roberto Guerrero now looks to the inside of Michael Andretti going into corner number 1, and Guerrero gets the position. Roberto Guerrero now second and pulling away from Michael Andretti.
He accomplished it, Bob, very smoothly. He went downstairs and let the car have its own head. He just worked his way back up into the groove and got by Michael Andretti and took over second again.
Now about an equal distance between first and second and third, about 12 to 15 car lengths separating the first 3. Emerson Fittipaldi is continuing to run in 4th position, but back quite a ways from Michael Andretti. Then Mario Andretti and Scott Brayton.
Just about half a lap ago, Emerson Fittipaldi dipped to the inside of Scotty Brayton and took over that 4th position, and now he's beginning to build the speed up as one car comes onto pit road.
That's Spike Gelhausen in car number 10, who has made an early pit stop. Spike was the slowest qualifier in the field at 202.219 miles an hour, and he's in for a stop. Now we have a battle developing in the field as Mario Andretti is trying to gain that 5th position from Scott Brayton out onto the tri-oval. But for the moment, Andretti falling back behind Scott.
Bob, there was a good example of just how narrow this track can get for a race car driver. Mario Andretti looked to the inside of the 71 of Scott Brayton, but he really didn't have the space necessary to accomplish the pass cleanly. He backed, if you want to call it, backed out of the throttle just a bit and settled for that 5th spot. 6th spot, actually.
There is Scott Brayton in the white car, number 71. That's the car that's driven on the road courses by Jacques Villeneuve, but being handled here on the oval by Scott Brayton. Right behind him is Mario Andretti. Behind Mario is Bobby Rahal. Then behind Rahal is Tom Sneva as the field now begins to get strung out, and we have completed 5 laps. There is Andretti once again trying to close in on Scott Brayton, who is running right now in 5th spot.
2 distinct lines there as we watch these 2 drivers, Brayton in 5th and Mario in 6th, as they hurdle through turns 3 and 4. Brayton taking just a tad higher line, Mario keeping his nose ducked down a little lower. That should be an indication that Mario's car is working just a little bit better than Scotty Brayton's.
Just to elaborate a little bit on a note that we gave you just before the start of the race, Jeff Brabham qualified for 19th position. However, in checking the car this morning, they found a broken bell housing, so they had to switch to the backup car. So Brabham is not driving the Honda, rather he is driving the Cosworth in this event. Rick Mears continues to lead the Pepsi-Cola 250, and Roberto Guerrero is still in 2nd position. There they are. You can see the separation between the 2. Michael Andretti is 3rd. 4th is Emerson Fittipaldi, and Brayton in 5th.
Bob, it looks as if Guerrero may be having just a tad difficulty getting into the corners as he hurdles down towards turn number 3. Let's see if he goes in. Well, he loses a little bit of an advantage that he gains down the straightaways as he works through the corners. It looks as if Rick Mears' car is working just a little bit better in the turns.
Mears flawless so far, took the lead at the drop of the green flag and has held it since. But Jack, as you mentioned, the question on everybody's mind at this moment is, can the Chevrolet Ilmor engine last? It has not proven to be that reliable in previous events.
Well, but that's not to be unexpected. As we said, it went from the drawing board to the racetrack in, 11 or 12 months. They've really done a lot of work this year. First, it came with the PC chassis. They moved it over to the March chassis, and they have really done a commendable job. Roger Penske and the Ilmor Group have got to be congratulated as we see the separation there between first and second. That is Mears and Guerrero all the way back to third, and that, of course, being Michael Andretti. And that front two combination is beginning to pull away from Andretti.
Very definitely. Michael is now almost a half a straightaway behind the second place Roberto Guerrero. So although Michael did have a good start and moved into second for a while, passing Guerrero, Guerrero got him back, and now he and Rick Mears are running together in first and second. Spike Gelhausen, by the way, is back on the racetrack. There he is on the high side as Guerrero goes to the low side to put a lap on him. So we have 10 laps completed in the Pepsi-Cola Premium. The leader, Rick Mears, Guerrero second, Michael Andretti third. We'll be right back. With 11 of 125 laps completed, there are your top five. Mears, Guerrero, Michael Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi, and Scott Brayton. Running sixth is Mario Andretti. Seventh is Ray Hall. Eighth, Tom Steva. Ninth is Dennis Firestone. And in 10th position is Al Unser Jr. But there are the first two in the separation between them off of turn number 2 down the backstretch. Mears and Guerrero.
Looking at the cars, especially as they work down the back straightaway with an average speed of about 211.44 for the first 10 laps here, you can see that Rick Mears' car seems very, very stable. It works through the corners quite nicely down to the flat of the backstretch. But look at the battle for actually, I think that's 13th and 14th position. And whoa, it looks like Danny Sullivan is having some sort of a problem because he's losing ground to Arie Luyendyk.
That's Kogan running ahead of the duo of Luyendyk and Danny Sullivan, and Sullivan has been off the pace all weekend, qualifying at a very disappointing 2:11.883, good enough for 16th starting position, and at the moment he is in 13th, but is not, as you would say, on the pace.
Well, of course, they had an engine expire there just before qualifying yesterday. Engine problems befalling both Penske operations. It was okay for Rick Mears, but not okay when it came to qualifying time for Danny Sullivan, and he's losing ground now to Luyendyk and Kevin Kogan.
Luyendyk appears to be moving nicely. He goes to the inside right at the start-finish line and tries to pass Kevin Kogan. We'll follow them into turn number 1. It is Luyendyk to the inside and making the move on Kevin Kogan. So into 13th, make that 12th position, goes Arie Luyendyk. And that number 61 machine is moving nicely. There is Spike Gelhausen, who did make the early pit stop. However, he is back on the racetrack. We do have one car in the pit area. Johnny Parsons is getting some attention in his pit area. There's Arie Luyendyk.
You know, that's a good run for Arie, and I think the big change there has been with the team. They haven't run all of the kart series this year, and they added Darryl Soppy to their team as a crew chief, and he seems to have helped a great deal, especially on the super speedways.
And A.J. Foyt is also moving, but look at Danny Sullivan finding some speed out of nowhere, moving to the inside and passing Kevin Kogan as they went down the backstretch.
Hard to tell what that could have been. It could be also that Kevin has dropped out of the throttle just a bit, but we talk about how narrow this racetrack is. You've got to pick and choose your spots where you pass, and sometimes that means feathering the throttle just a bit. Look at A.J. Foyt, down low. This is a place where he likes to run. He's well over 200 miles per hour, and he keeps the nose of that Copenhagen car down, pointed down towards the apron, and he's having a fine ride this afternoon.
A.J. currently listed in 15th position in the number 14 Gilmore car, the Gilmore Copenhagen March, qualifying at 2:12. There is Kevin Kogan to the inside of Spike Gelhausen down the backstretch and into turn number 3. And now Foyt is also closing in on Kevin Kogan. As a matter of fact, Foyt is to the inside of Kogan here on the tri-oval, and A.J. Foyt moves up another spot into 14th.
A.J. just taking his time. He knows that while this is not a 500-mile contest.
We have smoke coming from Roberto Guerrero's car here on the tri-oval. There he is. You can see some smoke coming from Guerrero's car. And And it appears as if some serious problems have befallen Guerrero once again. What a disappointment.
That is just absolutely a problem. Look at him trying to wiggle the car back and forth. That's actually to gain control of the car. He's had to back out of the throttle, and it looks as if it will be terminal on Roberto Guerrero.
Yellow flag is out. The yellow is out because of Guerrero's car. He's moving very slowly through turn number 3. Here comes Mears in for a pit stop, meanwhile, as we watch the Guerrero car, and also Michael Andretti comes in. We're going to see some wholesale pit stop activity here during this first caution period at the end of 19 laps. Michael Andretti is in, so is Scott Brayton, Mario Andretti, Bobby Rahal, Fittipaldi, Mears, and others. Tom Sneva also coming in for a stop, and we can see just about everybody coming in for a stop. Johnny Rutherford elects not to make the stop. He stays on the race course and will probably get credit for leading that lap. Let's go down to Gary Lee.
We are here in Guerrero's pit. Guerrero has just arrived. A lot of smoke coming from the right rear wheel assembly. They have the 3 tires off, a bucket of water about to be employed over here. A lot of smoke coming from the right rear of the car, and the sign is given to shut the engine. So we really can't tell. It looks like it's coming from the right brake mechanism. The rotor appears to be smoking. We're seeing lots of sparks coming out from that right rear as well. They have now cut the Cosworth. The crew now working on the right rear, and there's a bit of not only concern, anticipation, but also a look of bewilderment on the faces of some of the crew members. Now we have the fire extinguisher over there just in case it is needed. And Guerrero is being unbuckled by the crew members, and what a disappointment for this young driver who is well overdue for his first ever championship win. He's been second a number of times, has been very competitive, but he simply has not had lady luck.
And so Roberto Guerrero loosens the belts and climbs out of the race car, and he calls it quits. Guerrero, a second-place finisher at Mid-Ohio just a few weeks ago, and the second fastest qualifier here at Michigan this weekend, but the car just would not hold together for him. The yellow is out on this 250-mile race here at Michigan. We'll take this break and be back in a moment.
Back here in Michigan, we're about to get back under green flag conditions, but let's take a look again at Roberto Guerrero's problem. You'll see the smoke just come up from behind the car, and right now he's checking the gauges to make sure it's not the car itself, maybe an engine expiring, and now he's trying to whoa it. He's trying to get the horsepower down to where it's manageable and controllable, because he doesn't know what the problem is with the vehicle. There's Al Jr., a tough break for him. It could be a repeat of last year, a DNF, because there's an awful lot of smoke coming from beneath that Lola.
This is the 3rd time he has been into the pits here in since we went yellow, and he is being pushed away. He has not lost a lap yet, but there is something definitely wrong with that race car. Now we're about to go green. The green waves. Johnny Rutherford is the leader of this race. Jackie chose not to pit during that caution period. He's going to lose the lead, though, very quickly as Michael Andretti goes to the inside going into turn number 1 and retakes the first position. But why would Rutherford not choose to make a stop during that first period?
I don't know, Bob. It could be a calculated risk on he and Johnny Capel's part, figuring there'll be some more cautions and he'll be able to come into the pits. But who knows, as we see Al Jr. still having problems. He's not up to speed, and it looks like he'll be back into the pits. But look at how quickly Michael Andretti has appropriated the lead from Johnny Rutherford. Rutherford has now dropped back to the 3rd position, losing another spot. Actually, he's still back in 2nd, about to lose 3rd to Mario Andretti. Andretti is running in that 3rd spot.
Al Unser Jr. finished 23rd here in this race last year, and many said that that was the turning point in him losing the national championship to his father. With a few more points in this race, he may have had enough to carry him into the championship. And it appears as if the bad luck that he suffered here last year has also hit him again, because Al Unser Jr. limps onto pit road. Let's go down to Gary Lee.
Roberto, I've known you long enough. I can read the disappointment, the anguish in your eyes. What happened?
Well, we don't know for sure. It was either a CV joint or a wheel bearing or something. It's you know, the car started smoking on the front straightaway, and I was lucky that I caught the smoke and I backed up, because in the middle of 1 and 2 it got really bad, and after that you know, as soon as you touch the throttle, the car would go sideways. So we were lucky not to crash it.
Can you ever explain how frustrating this is to be so competitive but yet have no luck whatsoever?
It's tough to explain. It gets harder and harder to take. You know, we just keep running so competitive, but somehow we can finish the races, and I hope it's going to change soon.
That's Roberto Guerrero from Colombia, who was the second fastest qualifier, was the only driver really able to stay up with Rick Mears there in the first 20 laps, and then something went wrong with the car. Roberto Guerrero is out of the race. There is the leader, Michael Andretti, and you can see the interval between first and second position. Now, Johnny Rutherford is still holding on to that second spot, holding off the challenges of Mario Andretti and Bobby Rahal. Behind Rahal, Emerson Fittipaldi, then Rick Mears, then Dennis Firestone, followed by Scott Brayton, Tom Sneva, Danny Sullivan, Lyondike, and Kevin Kogan.
As I said before, Bob, I'm not all that sure why they would not bring Johnny Rutherford in when the rest of the leaders did. He does have a solid second running position right now, but it's thrown him out of sequence with the rest of the lead contingent as far as pit stops are concerned. So we'll just have to wait and see if this is a good move or a bad move as we take a look at Emerson Fittipaldi and Dennis Firestone, who are starting to just seesaw back and forth for a battle for a position. That's for 6th and 7th, but we thought we might have seen a little bit of smoke out of Firestone's car last lap around.
We'll continue to keep an eye on that situation as the Pepsi-Cola 250 continues here at Michigan International Speedway with 27 laps completed. Michael Andretti with about a 1-second advantage on Johnny Rutherford. Michael, as we indicated early in the race, is tied for 4th place with his father in the battle for the PPG IndyCar World Series Championship.
You know, at the beginning of the season, everybody thought that Adrian Newey team, along with Barry Green, that they were really going to be able to tie down a lot of victories. They scored too quickly, and then they didn't do much. Now, take a look at this battle again. Arie Luyendyk and Danny Sullivan continuing to change positions there. That battle's been going on even before the caution flag. Boy,
Arie Luyendyk is having an outstanding race. He has moved up into 10th position after starting in 20th spot. So he has got that car hooked up. He has just passed Danny Sullivan for that 10th position, and we'll continue to watch Arie Luyendyk in that race for life loadout. There's Michael Andretti. He has 2 wins so far this year and 3 pole positions.
And as I said, everybody thought that that was going to be the team to be contended with, especially the way they started the season. But then, of course, you remember all of the stuff about Adrian Newey leaving and going over to Brabham and doing a lot of Formula One racing and as a designer. And then, was he going? Wasn't he going? Was Michael going to stay with the team? Well, as things settled down, they're beginning to run better, that Barry Green tuned car. But Michael has not really shown as much as he did at the beginning of the season. And take a look there again is Johnny Rutherford. He's having a good run in 2nd position.
Well, let's go down to Gary Lee, who's with Johnny Caples, the crew chief on the Rutherford car, for an explanation of why Johnny didn't come in during that caution period. Gary?
Well, you certainly would try to second-guess your strategy in leaving John out. So let's go right to the source. What's the thinking?
Well, we're being bothered terrifically bad by all the turbulence of the traffic in front of us, and we just kept dropping back because it made the car real loose. I was hoping that we could run with the leaders if we could get in front of some of that traffic. That's exactly what we're doing. We're scheduled to stop on lap 38, and it's just it's a gamble. He's got clean air. The chassis is working fine in clean air. As you can see, he's been running consistently at 213. But in the beginning there, with all that traffic in front, it was buffeting him around to the degree that he just didn't feel comfortable past 208. And I decided, since we were so far back of the lead pack, that we'd try to put us into some open air and assess our chassis situation. And that's what we're doing.
Do you think you can make those necessary changes during the stop?
Oh, yes. We can make those changes during the stop, but then if we would have stopped, we have to close up on the pace car. When you're that far back, you've got to stay out and close up. It doesn't do you any good to drop right in the pits before the pace car arrests the speed of the leader, because then you get further behind. So once we closed up on the pace car, if I would have brought him in and made any changes on the car without really knowing how it runs in clean air, then we would have been at the tail end of the pack, and it would have been worse than what we were experiencing. So we're going to run to our planned scheduled stop.
All right, there's the word from the Brain Trust for Johnny Rutherford, the Vermont American team.
Bob, that's a real gutsy call on Johnny Caples' part, being able to find out exactly what the car's doing in clean air before he brings him in to make the adjustment.
There's Rutherford still in 2nd position, about a second behind Michael Andretti. the leader of this race. There is Michael now between turns 3 and 4. The average speed after 30 laps, 182.96 miles an hour, and that includes a caution period.
We've got 18 cars that still remain on the lead lap, but let's go down to Gary Lee, who has another driver that's dropped out of this contest. Gary?
Al Jr., we were concerned about you physically going the distance. We didn't talk about the car going the distance. What happened?
We had a clutch problem. It started slipping real bad right before the yellow, and then once the yellow and I slowed the car down, then it just wouldn't grab hold. It wouldn't work. So.
Frustrating day and a short one.
Yeah, it was. It was just real short day. You know, the Domino's Pizza Hot one was running good, but we just had that problem with the clutch.
All right, could make a big difference in the points chase. Little Al's a spectator.
Other pit stops are being made. Dennis Firestone has come in. So has Scott Brayton. And if what Johnny Caples told us is true, Johnny Rutherford will be coming in about 2 laps. He indicated lap 38, and we're about to complete lap number 36. A.J. Foyt, while we watch the leader, Michael Andretti, will tell you that he is moving up well and has now gotten up to 9th position. Foyt up to 9th.
You know, Foyt, a veteran of what? From the Roadsters, the front-end Roadsters, all the way down to these ground effects cars. He's driven it all. And in a couple, well, actually next week, he's going to be inducted as one of the 5 great sports heroes of all time in New York City. So that's going to be quite a thrill for A.J.
With company like, let's see, Joe DiMaggio is going to be inducted, and then Althea Gibson and several others. Very, very good company that A.J. Foyt is keeping.
But when you talk about racing, you've got to name A.J. Foyt as one of the tops. Of course, Mario Andretti, Richard Petty, all their fans would make an argument. But A.J. has done it all, whether it's road racing, stock car racing, or IndyCar racing. It's always concerned me. I would have loved to have seen A.J. Foyt drive a Formula One car, just to see if he could get the job done in that as well.
Michael Andretti continues to be the leader of this 250-mile IndyCar race here at Michigan. Michael has not won since Milwaukee. He won also at Long Beach earlier this year, but it's been since June Michael visited Victory Lane. Back with more at Michigan in a moment. Jenkins, Jack Arute, and Gary Lee back at Michigan International Speedway for the Pepsi-Cola 250 IndyCar race. The lead is held by Michael Andretti. Second is Johnny Rutherford. Third, Mario Andretti. Fourth is Bobby Rahal. And fifth is Rick Mears. Here comes Johnny Rutherford in for a pit stop. He completed 40 laps, so it was a couple of more than Johnny Caples indicated to us. But here is Rutherford's pit stop. With it is Gary Lee.
Well, there's nobody any better than flying into the pits and stopping right on the money. And there he is. The car goes up on the jacks. They will change 3 tires, top off the fuel, right within that window that Johnny Caples talked about. Now, we're seeing that no adjustments right now are being made to the front wing. Let's see if, in fact, they do make some adjustment. We talked about the handling problem. They said John couldn't get over 208. I did not see an adjustment made.
Well, Rutherford screeches out of the pit area and gets back out on the track and stands to lose a lap. He will lose a lap because of the pit stop under green. Where you can see Rick Mears going by. He's currently our 4th place competitor.
Not one to be a doomsayer, but that gamble on by Johnny Caples and Johnny Rutherford, they gambled, and it looks like they may have come up short because during a green flag pit stop, they indeed had to know that they were going to at least go 1 lap down to the leaders. A tough break for that team because I thought it was a gutsy call on their part.
Had they been able to make that stop under caution, it would have worked out fine, but unfortunately for that team, the track stayed green, and he had to make the stop while everybody was at full speed. So Rutherford now drops back to 16th position. He is a lap down.
Let's take a look at the battle for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th position. There it is. Mario Andretti has appropriated that 2nd position, moving Bobby Rahal into 3rd. He's in the center of your screen there as they round out of turn 4. Just coming into the screen, the far side, that's the battle for the...
Mears is coming in.
This would have to be unscheduled, Bob. I don't think that he should be coming in at this time.
No, he was, of course, one of the ones that made the stop during the caution period on lap number 20, so it's definitely an unscheduled stop for Rick Mears. Let's see what they do to the car. They're changing both front tires on the machine, and now they're beginning to change the right rear. Again, no indication indication of any chassis adjustment. They're not working at the front end of the car on the wing or at the rear end. They do top it off with gas, perhaps just some tires that Rick did not feel comfortable with, and so he gets them changed.
You know, we've seen that a couple of times with Rick Mears this year in the Pennzoil team. They've elected that they've had a problem with a tire, and they've come in under green and changed them, giving the lead away or giving any advantage that they might have over the field. So while it's a tough break, we've seen them do it before.
Well, that means that moving up into 4th position with Mears now down a lap is going to be Emerson Fittipaldi. Tom Sneva is in 5th place. 6th is Ari Leyendijk. An unbelievably successful run for Ari here in the relatively early going of this race. He has moved from 20th starting position all the way up to 6th. A.J. Foyt is running 7th. In 8th position is Danny Sullivan. 9th is Jeff Brabham. In 10th position is Roberto Moreno. 11th is Kevin Kogan. 12th is Ed Pym. And in 13th position is Steve Chassie driving the Arciero car here this weekend. Those cars on the lead lap.
Despite the one caution period, it's been a blistering pace thus far with 45 laps completed. The average speed is 189.59 miles per hour. And as we've watched Michael Andretti circle this 2-mile facility, we've seen that he really has the heat built up.
Andretti's lead amounts to 2 seconds over Mario Andretti. And just about a 2.5-second lead over Bobby Rahal. There are 2nd and 3rd positions heading into turn number 3. Mario with the car relatively low on the racetrack. And right behind him comes Bobby Rahal. The car swinging out wide as it comes off the 4th corner onto the tri-oval, right up against the wall.
We've talked a lot all year about March versus Lola, and Mario Andretti says that here on the super speedways is where the Lola may still be at a disadvantage to its cousin, the March. He doesn't feel that the car is quite as responsive or quite as quick through the wind. So he says whatever the Lola gains here is really through determination and hard work by the crew.
There is Emerson Fittipaldi in 4th position, about 3.5 seconds behind the leader. This is, of course, where Emerson won his very first, in fact, only IndyCar race of his career. It occurred a year ago on these high banks in the Michigan 500.
Not a lot has been heard from Fittipaldi's camp recently. They've had more than their share of bad luck, but all this weekend there seemed to be an unbelievable air of confidence by the team, and hopefully they're looking for another victory here at Michigan.
And this battle for 2nd position now becomes even closer, although a car gets between the two, Andretti and Rahal.
There's what we were talking about the racetrack as wide as it is being very narrow. You saw Bobby Rahal trying to get around I think it was the number 12 car being driven by Steve Chassie this weekend, and he ran out of racing room. Even as wide as this racetrack was, he had to back out and give way to Chassie going into the corner.
Well, that battle for 2nd was really becoming interesting, but now with the lap traffic between them, it spreads out just a little bit, and Mario has now a hold on that 2nd position.
That's how quick everything that you work lap after lap for, the advantage, how quick it can go away on you. And it went away real fast for Bobby Rahal.
And we have A.J. Foyt coming in, and Michael Andretti, the leader, is also coming in for a pit stop. The crew is waiting on him. Michael slows the car down and comes to a halt. We're on lap number 50. And we have indications that the right front tire was flat on that car. A tough break for Michael Andretti. He is going to go a lap down.
Well, it's definitely not for fuel. And here's the race for the lead. Bobby Rahal was trying to challenge Mario Andretti for the front spot. Andretti held on to it. And now the caution has been displayed on the racetrack. A break for Michael Andretti.
The yellow is out, and Michael did lose a lap. The leaders did come by before the pace car got out there. So.
We may be premature on that,
Well,
Bob,
maybe not.
Because the pace car is out as we watch Mario Andretti's crew go to work on the Hanna Car Wash special, and Michael Andretti is directly behind the pace car. Now he's being waved by as the activity between 1st and 2nd on pit road continues. Rahal is down 1st. He's being pushed away. Now Mario Andretti gets in the throttle and comes in very close. Scott Brayton almost bought the ranch.
That was as close as you can get without an actual contact. Brayton and Mario Andretti missed by hundredths of an inch, it looked to me like. But they did miss. We'll take a look at it once again as Andretti's crew lower the car down off the
All
tracks.
right, look at Andretti. He's in the throttle hard. Here comes Brayton trying to go to his spot. Both of them come very close together, and a pit crew member almost bought it there, too.
That allowed Bobby Rahal to sail on by, so Rahal got out ahead of Mario Andretti on the racetrack. Let's see how they stack up as the field comes down here and crosses the finish line. It appears as if, because he is choosing again not to make a pit stop, that Johnny Rutherford is going to be our leader. Although we'll check that for sure. The reason for the yellow is for debris in corner number 4. And our question of the week this week here at Michigan.
Going too fast. Well, I think probably we are. Going fast is no problem. You know, the cars are designed to do it. Getting out there to do it, and the drivers, as long as everything is whole and in one piece and going right, they don't mind going fast. But when you have a problem at those speeds, you've really got a problem, and that's where we feel like they need to slow down to give us that little bit of margin. So if you get into trouble, you've got something to count on.
Well, I think we definitely are going too fast. You know, when something, you know, if you could be guaranteed that nothing is going to go wrong, then, you know, it's up to you, then that's fine. But when something unexpected happens, like it happened to me, or something breaks, I think it pretty much becomes a Russian roulette. It depends which way you spin. If you spin head-on into the wall, you're probably going to be hurt, and if you lock out, then you may be okay.
They're not too high to drive, you know. They're only too high if something goes wrong. So it's a very difficult thing to say how you slow the cars down. If it was me, I would make everybody take their wings off and let me run a wing. So.
Those are comments from some of the drivers on Are We Going Too Fast? Well, Johnny Rutherford is back on the lead lap, but the leader of the race is Bobby Rahal. We'll be back at Michigan International Speedway right after these messages. Michigan because of debris on the racetrack. However, we will be going back to green conditions next time around. Bobby Rahal, the leader.
Now, this caution was of some help to Rick Mears and to Johnny Rutherford. Both of them are now on the tail end of the lead lap. So if they could break away from Bobby Rahal, stay out in front of him, and then another caution comes out, they can gain that one-lap deficit back.
Emerson Fittipaldi running second. Third is Mario Andretti. Fourth is Michael. And fifth, Arie Luyendyk. Has to be one of his best performances ever.
Well, as we said, Luyendyck's crew electing for the first time in a long time not to run the entire kart series this year. They've stayed away from a couple of races. They've made some crew changes, namely Darrell Sapi has taken over the chief mechanic chores, and it seems as if it's working to their advantage, at least here.
Johnny Rutherford is the car at the head of the line. He is leading the field down very slowly through the third and fourth turns. Now begins to gain a little bit of momentum as the pace car comes off the racetrack. Here comes Rutherford and Mears off of corner number 4 onto the trioval. They receive the green flag, and racing is back at full speed. Rahal going to the inside. Going into turn number 1. He does, however, elect to drop in behind both Rutherford and Mears, at least for the moment. Now he'll go to the inside.
Well, he's hunting for that position. He's out front, he's in the lead, and he wants to put Johnny Rutherford down a lap. He's taking a good, long, hard look at it as they hurtle towards turn 3.
Emerson Fittipaldi also running well, following Rahal through the traffic. Down the backstretch. Here they come off the fourth corner once again. It is Mears and Rutherford, but they're a lap down, remember. Bobby Rahal, the third car in line, and right behind him is Emerson Fittipaldi running second. Could this be Emerson Fittipaldi's second victory of his career here at Michigan? The car is running very strong.
Here's one of the nuances that makes kart PPG IndyCar racing so exciting. You've got Bobby Rahal in the points lead by 1 point. He's out front in this race, and he takes a look at Rick Mears, and there's Michael Andretti just blowing by another car trying to gain some advantage as he's going down, and he's taking his sights now on Emerson Fittipaldi. He's running in that third spot. He's going to try and get second from Fittipaldi as they come to the stripe. Fittipaldi's got it. Let's see if he can carry it into turn 1. He doesn't. Andretti moves to second.
Change for second. Michael Andretti goes around Emerson Fittipaldi and moves to that number 2 position. There is Michael down the backstretch.
So while Andretti tries to build up his advantage and gain on Bobby Rahal, your leader here, as we were saying before, they've got their own race. Rahal's got to be concerned about Rutherford and Mears, because if he doesn't get by them, come a caution, they're going to be back in the hunt as well. But Michael is flying. He goes to the inside, Bob.
Cannot make the move at the moment, but he is right there challenging. Let's see how they stack up as they come off the second corner and head down the backstretch. Michael Andretti goes to the inside of Bobby Rahal. They're side by side, wheel to wheel, and Michael just shoots in front of Rahal going into the third turn and grabs that lead.
Just carried it in way deep, flat-footed it into turn 3, and it gave him second position. Gave him the lead, pardon me.
And Dennis Firestone running right alongside Bobby Rahal, but Firestone is not on the lead lap.
On that restart, Firestone was up there with Mears and with Rutherford, and now he's lost that lap again, and he's 1 lap to the back. He's going to the back.
We understand that Tom Sneva is going to be assessed a stop-and-go penalty for passing on the yellow. We'll watch for that situation. He has not come in yet for that penalty, but word is from the kart officials that there will be such an assessment. It's still Michael Andretti leading Bobby Rahal, Emerson Fittipaldi, then Mario Andretti, and Ari Luyendyk.
Despite the fact that Firestone is a lap down, he's still running very nicely. He's staying glued to Bobby Rahal there. So he's not out of the hunt yet. He saw what Rutherford and Mears were able to do during the course of a caution, and he's going to try and stay with that front pack.
Kevin Kogan has also found some speed, and he has now moved up into that 5th position, passing Ari Luyendyk. Kevin Kogan, who crashed here earlier in the week during a practice, knocking off the right rear of the car and necessitating some changes, but he is moving up now into 5th position, about 4 seconds behind the leader.
Did you see that shot of Kevin Kogan, Bob, as we were in real tight on Kevin? Could you see the way his head was cocked just a little bit? Working the G-forces through these corners, you can pull as much as 3 to 3.5 Gs, almost as much as you pull in a fighter plane.
Let's go down to Gary Lee, who has a report on what's going on as far as tire wear is concerned. Gary?
Well, Bob and Jack, right now I'm in the pit area of Bobby Rahal. As you can see, a Goodyear tire engineer is working with one of the crew members on the tires. These tires could be a problem. These are the same bias ply tires they used here for the 500. However, we have heard numerous reports of blistering. I am told that if the cars are set up neutral or if they're loose, the tires are beginning to blister. In fact, that's why Rick Mears came in that second time. Both front tires were blistered. Gary Bettenhausen, badly blistered. 2 right rear tires. He was so far back, he gave up the hunt and said, I've had enough. The problem is we have a green track today. The operating temperature of these tires should be about 240. With the green track and a combination of the higher temperatures, the operating temperatures are going up about 15 to 20 degrees. That could be a problem for the leaders as the day wears on.
And there is the stop-and-go penalty assessed Tom Sneva for passing under yellow. You just have to come in, stop the car, and then you can go right back out there, and that's what Tom is doing. He was running in 7th position.
Bob, in the postscript to that tire story, every race that we've been here, whether it's NASCAR or kart, we've had a tire story. Now, it's not a case of the tires being bad. It's a case of crew chiefs and chief mechanics determining that they can go just so far in their track setup with the tires, and then if the temperatures aren't right, if there isn't enough rubber down on the racetrack, it'll literally peel the rubber off of those tires. So it's not a bad tire. It's really a poor choice of how you set your car up.
This has been the racetrack that has led to many tire stories. You remember a year ago during the running of the Michigan 500, or actually before they ran the race, they decided that the radial tires just weren't up to the racetrack itself, and so the race was postponed and later run with bias ply tires. And they're back on bias ply tires in this event. And there is Michael Andretti, who is continuing to lead with about a 1-second advantage over Bobby Rahal now, with 67 laps out of 125 completed. Here comes Rahal down the backstretch. That's still Dennis Firestone tucked in right behind Bobby Bobby Rahal. He is a lap down, but staying right with Bobby.
And that's not the easiest place to run a car either, glued to the rear deck lid or the rear wing of Bobby Rahal. You can see Firestone has to dart the nose to the inside a little bit to gain some more stable air, because when you're behind that wing, that's really disturbed air that Dennis Firestone is running in, and that's a difficult prospect at best.
Well, if there was a headline maker associated with this race, in addition to whoever comes out the winner, I think the nod would have to go to Dennis Firestone for bringing that car here and being very fast from the word go. He was among the top fastest practicers from the time the track opened, qualified 6th fastest at more than 215 miles an hour. As a matter of fact, tying Johnny Rutherford for qualifying speed, with Rutherford qualified first. That's why Johnny started 5th and Firestone 6th. Gary Lee in the pit area.
Well, gentlemen, just an addendum to the tire story. We have talked with Barry Green, and yes, your leader has had trouble with tires blistering. Consequently, they are taking some air out. In fact, on the next stop, the right rear tire will have 2 pounds less air than it does right now. That should compensate for the problem.
Also, we'll change the stagger on these cars, because these are not radial tires, so it will dramatically affect the stagger. That is, the circumference of the tires, the separation between the inside and the outside. As you go around an oval track, you need some stagger, but when you drop 2 pounds of air, you're going to change the stagger dramatically on one of these tires.
It is Michael Andretti leading the Pepsi-Cola 250 at Michigan International Speedway. Back with more right after these messages. Speedway in the Pepsi-Cola 250. The leader is Michael Andretti. And our Napa mid-race recap shows you that after 70 laps, the average speed was 177.12 miles an hour. We had 2 caution periods, nothing for any significance, no accidents. 13 laps were run under caution. There have been 6 leaders and 7 lead changes. Michael Andretti, the leader at the end of 70 laps. He continues to do so. And we have 19 cars that are still running, 12 on the lead lap. Those that have fallen out of competition, the first out was Roberto Guerrero, then Al Unser Jr., then Johnny Parsons, and Gary Bettenhausen. The top 5, Michael Andretti, Bobby Rahal, Emerson Fittipaldi, Mario Andretti, and Kevin Kogan. We'll resume our coverage in just a moment from Michigan. Michigan, where the lead continues to be held by Michael Andretti, about a 6-second advantage now over Bobby Rahal. And one driver that we have been watching fall toward the rear of the field is Danny Sullivan in that Penske-prepared Miller American. He was running in the top 10, but has now fallen back to 12th and is a lap down. You can see there the interval that Michael has over second-place Rahal. At the moment, Michael is running away with this event.
Here, take a look at the head-on shot as Michael works into the corner there. He's just having a real fine ride, with the exception of that one tire problem that they encountered that Gary Lee told you about. He is set, to use no pun intended, a real blistering pace in this race.
And someone else who's doing a fine job is Emerson Fittipaldi in that 3rd spot. And Gary Lee has further updates from the pit area.
Well, again, the story may be tires. We're down here right now in one of the Penske pits with the Danny Sullivan crew, and apparently there's a very bad vibration that this March has picked up due to this set of tires. The brain trust now is vacillating between bringing Danny in and making the change or waiting for a yellow. If he comes in into green, obviously he's going to backpedal even more. Now, apparently the only team that has not had some concern with tires in the lead serial is that of Bobby Rahal. I talked to Steve Horn. He said, no, our car is set up neutral. We're not having any trouble with the tires, and Bobby is running a conservative pace. However, the leader and also Emerson Fittipaldi have had trouble with blistered tires.
Well, it's very obvious that Danny Sullivan is off the pace. Everybody is passing him out in the second corner and down the backstretch, and we may see Danny coming in for a pit stop very, very soon. Scott Brayton has come in for a stop. Scott has not been up to speed hardly at all here this afternoon after the 4th quickest qualifying attempt. Sullivan does not elect to go into the pit area, and so he stays out there, and there is, once again, is the leader, Michael Andretti.
Now, Andretti is working some race traffic as Johnny goes by Johnny Rutherford. Rutherford is coming into the pit for what should be, I believe, Bob, probably a normal pit stop. You know, he's out of that sequence, so he's got to come in now to take on fuel. It looks like they'll take tires as well.
He last pitted on lap Rick Mears coming in for a stop. Meanwhile, we have also seen Emerson Fittipaldi in the last lap go into second position, passing Bobby Rahal. Here is the Mears stop, though. They go to work on the right side of the car, changing the tires on that side and putting fuel in.
Well, they've learned one thing today, Bob. The Chevrolet engine is lasting. They have not retired from this event, although they had a tire problem that took them out of the lead hunt.
It's a 16.1-second stop for Rick Mears. And the driver who led the early going of this race goes back out into the fray, but he is now being shown as a lap down to the field.
Now the question will be, Bob, when will Michael Andretti pit? He has to come in one more time. They'll have to take on fuel. And, of course, will they take on those tires that Gary Lee talked about with 2 pounds less of pressure?
Michael charges down the backstretch. Again, Emerson Fittipaldi now in second position, and Bobby Rahal back to third, while Mario continues to run fourth and Kevin Kogan fifth. Sixth is Ari Luyendyk. Seventh is Tom Steva. And in eighth position is Roberto Moreno. Good ride from him.
This thing could be won or lost in the pits in this last series of pit stops. Fittipaldi's crew, they're no slouches, led by Jim McGee and company. The Pat Patrick team, they know what they have ahead of them, because when you're traveling at 200 miles an hour, that's a football field, 100 yards per second. So every fraction of that time that you spend on pit road, you lose or gain back out on the racetrack. So this last set of pit stops will be critical to determine who wins this race.
Especially if we stay under green conditions. And I think that's something, Jack, that's very hard to explain. When we came here for the Michigan 500 in August, by this time we had had 4 or 5 crashes and run very few laps under green. We have seen no accidents here today, only 2 caution periods, one for debris on the racetrack and the other one for Roberto Guerrero's car as Mario Andretti comes in. I think it's very hard to explain why no crashes and why so many in the Michigan 500.
Well, your mindset is different here, though. As we watch Mario Andretti's crew go to work, you're talking about running a sprint race. You set up for it, and you kind of think that way. When you take a look at 500 miles, you work yourself into more of an endurance capacity, and that causes you to do things a little bit differently. Mario Andretti's service is completed, and now Bobby Rahal presents his car on pit road, and he will go to work with Steve Horn calling the shots on that team as we watch Michael Andretti.
There is Bobby Rahal. We have completed 88 laps, so this will also be his final stop of the afternoon. Michael Andretti, the leader, is staying out there, although as he comes in out of turn number 4, he too comes in for a stop. Rahal gets service. He goes out. Here comes Michael Andretti in for his stop. We'll watch it as the Graco crew goes to work. Let's go to Gary Lee.
The car is here. We are here. They will change 3 tires, right side and the left rear. Top off the 40 gallons of fuel. And again, we were told that there would be 2 less pounds of air pressure in that right rear. And as Jack intimated, that will certainly change the handling of the car. Consequently, they make a slight adjustment to the front wing. As small as it is, a little over 16 seconds, and Michael is underway.
All right, there's the benchmark, Bob. 16.8 seconds. That will be the time that Emerson Fittipaldi will have to beat. Fittipaldi is yet to be on pit road, so now they've got a mark to shoot for.
And we talked about the race being won or lost in the pit area. Perhaps this isn't a win or lose situation, but Ari Luyendyk somehow overshot his pit area. The crew had to go get him, and this is a tough break for Ari.
Looks like the car might have indeed stalled on the way back out of the pits, and they had to go retrieve it and refire it.
And they have got power to the car now, and Luyendyk gets back. Well, he's very slow in pulling away. The crew is pushing it now. It catches, and Luyendyk goes. The leader is Emerson Fittipaldi, but he needs a pit stop quickly.
Now, remember, the more laps that Emerson puts under his belt, the less fuel he will have to take on for this last stop. So it could very well be a timed stop to figure out just how much fuel goes into the car per second, and they'll let only that much go in. As we watch Ari Luyendyk limp back out onto the race course, he's still not back up to speed. Could be a problem with the gearbox.
Yeah, it could be. It may not.
Here we go, Bob. Here comes Fittipaldi. Let's see if it's a time stop. Remember, 16.8 is the time he's got to beat.
Fittipaldi pulls into his assigned pit area. His teammate Kevin Kogan leaves while Emerson comes in. Let's go again, once again, to Gary Lee.
Are they changing tires? No, they're not changing tires. He killed the engine when he came killed the engine, losing valuable time. They find the fire, and now he loses it again. The inertia starter being inserted in the rear of this Cosworth engine. Fittipaldi, his fist shaking in the cockpit. Now they find the fire again, and Fittipaldi now is underway. What a costly slow stop for Emmo Fittipaldi.
Fittipaldi gives up the lead for the pit stop and suffers 2 losses of power during the stop, and that hurts badly.
Boy, and you can see what their strategy was. No tires, time stop, fuel only, and the engine died.
Meanwhile, Michael Andretti now has gone back into the lead with 92 laps completed out of 125, so we only have 33 more to go. We'll be back to resume our coverage of this 250-mile IndyCar race.
Hello, I'm Frank Bottles, and this is...
Speed. A Pepsi-Cola 250 IndyCar race is underway here on the High Bank Trioval, located about 14 miles south of Jackson, Michigan. The average speed after 90 laps, 183.68 miles an hour. We've only had 2 caution periods, but neither for an accident. The top 5, Michael Andretti with about a 9.5-second lead on Bobby Rahal. Emerson Fittipaldi is third, followed by Mario Andretti and Kevin Kogan. Back with more right after this. Pepsi-Cola 250 IndyCar race. It is Michael Andretti, the leader. There he is, going to the inside at the end of the backstretch and into turn number 3 to put a lap on the number 71 car of Scott Brayton. Michael Andretti is your leader. Bobby Rahal second, followed by Emerson Fittipaldi, Mario Andretti, and Kevin Kogan. Then in 6th position is Rick Mears. 7th is Tom Sneva. 8th is Roberto Moreno. And 9th position is Johnny Rutherford. And 10th is Danny Sullivan. And we have Danny Sullivan coming in for a pit stop as we speak. So the problems that Danny Sullivan has experienced throughout this event continue. Tire wear has definitely been a story at this race.
See the crew member at the nose of the car making an adjustment on the front wing, trying to compensate for the handling problems. And you saw the little pointer that was tapped in on the gas man to let him know that there was plenty of fuel in the pullout.
Let's go down to Gary Lee, who's with Barry Green, the crew chief on Michael's car.
Barry, when I said to you, is the car handling, I liked your terminology. You say you're coping better with the problem than others.
Yeah, you know, we've backed off a little bit, Gary, but he seems to be able to cope with it a little bit better than others. He's driving as smooth as he can to conserve the tires. We're a little bit puzzled because we hadn't had any problems prior to today. The track's obviously changed a little bit on us, but hopefully we'll be okay at the end.
Is the boost all the way up, or are you conserving fuel as well?
Yeah, we just backed it off a little bit. We're not conserving fuel. We haven't got a fuel problem. We're really just trying to conserve the tires.
There once again, Barry Green says the terminology is coping better than others.
And here's the way Michael Andretti has been coping as we watch him go down the backstretch here. As he goes into the corner, he really lets the car, as a driver would say, have its own head. He doesn't try and manhandle it or keep the nose pointed down low. He just tries to keep it as steady as he possibly can. No bobbles, no fighting of the wheel. Just let the car go around almost in an elliptical type orbit around this D-shaped trioval.
Back in the battle for second position is Bobby Rahal and Emerson Fittipaldi. They've been dicing for that spot for many laps now. Bobby has had it since the most recent series of pit stops, and there they are, the separation between Bobby Rahal in second and Emerson Fittipaldi in third.
And that costly stop by Emerson Fittipaldi's crew. So tough to maintain your composure. Go back out there, know you're in that third spot, and say, all right, I'm not hunting for the lead, but maybe I can get Rahal and take second position. That's the mindset of Emerson Fittipaldi right now. A veteran Formula One ace. He's been here on the CART PPG IndyCar Tour for now close to 3 years. Really just got his work cut out for him. He's got to size up that second-place runner of Rahal, figure out where can he get the job done, can he get the job done, and can he maybe at least salvage second position.
The fourth-place competitor is Mario Andretti. His son Michael leads this event, but Mario is running in fourth, about 11.5 seconds back of his son. In that Canna Car Wash race car in fourth position. Mario tied with his son at 102 points going into this event.
Well, watch Mario Andretti, and there's Kevin Kogan. He's also having a decent run in 5th position this afternoon. Kevin, who, you know, driving as part of the Pat Patrick team. He hasn't really been in the contest for the lead, but he's a real steady drive. But we're talking about Mario Andretti, and we're talking about the hot points chase going into the last 5 races of this season. One of the things that we thought might be quite interesting is to take a look, as they say, if CART was based in Daytona Beach, Florida. What if the CART PPG IndyCar Series was measured by the NASCAR point system? Many people say that the NASCAR point system rewards consistency. Let's take a look at the way the point standings would be if it was under the NASCAR system. Look who'd be in the lead, Al Unser Jr., just by consistency. And look who'd be second, Danny Sullivan. Ray Hall, your current leader, would be back there, sequestered in 3rd, Michael Andretti 4th, and Kevin Kogan in 5th.
Interesting set of statistics there. There is Michael Andretti continuing to lead this race. And I think we also have to take our hats off and say a fine, fine job of driving to Kevin Kogan. As we indicated, he crashed here in practice. He did not have a particularly good qualifying effort, qualifying only good enough for 14th, but he has moved up to 5th position here in the race and has held on steadily to it. Well, 106 out of 125 laps completed. We're nearing the end of this event, and we'll be back with more in just a moment. 8 laps completed of 125. Michael Andretti continues to hold on to the lead, but Jack, did you notice that Scott Brayton just passed him and made it look easy? Could Michael be slowing down here?
Well, remember, we're talking to use Barry Green's phrase with Michael Andretti trying to cope with the lead. It's quite obvious that he's not running as fast as he was before, but it's also a case of where he's trying to let the car go where it wants so he doesn't scrub off those tires, you know? We're down to the last couple of laps. He knows he's got an advantage. Let's go to Gary Lee and see if he can update it a little further.
Well, again, we talked to Barry, and Barry said he was running a more conservative pace. He had backed off ever so slightly. Now, about 5 laps ago, it was an 8-second margin between 1st and 2nd. I asked Steve Horn, hey, is the boost all the way up?
Oh.
And yes, Bobby Rahal is running flat out right now as hard as he can.
We have an engine.
Michael Andretti is making a pit stop. Michael Andretti is in the pits, and we're headed down that direction. But again, Rahal was running flat out with the boost turned up, closing the gap.
But
Scott Brayton just blew, and Michael Andretti was coming in for a pit stop. When he saw the yellow was going to come out, he didn't stop and went right through the pit area.
That was some fast thinking on Michael Andretti's part and on Barry Green, his crew chief. They were set to come in. It was obvious that there was more of a problem than they wanted to allude to Gary Lee. But when they saw the white plume of smoke across the start-finish line by the 71 of Brayton, they just scurried down pit road so as not to go a lap down.
Smart thinking by the Michael Andretti crew. There is the reason for the yellow flag. It is Scott Brayton whose engine let go as it came out of turn number 4. Let's go down to Gary again.
And once again, we have made our way down as Michael slides through. He locks it up. They have to actually pull him back. He ran over the front air hose. That could attribute to a penalty right here. They have to start the engine. Now, are they changing tires? Yes, they are changing the left rear. They're changing the right front, but I don't know if they're changing the right rear. A bit of confusion here as Michael locked it up. We call that threshold braking just before you lock it up, but he went too far. He killed the engine. We knew that. Michael was signaling in a circular motion to start the engine. They're going to try to push starting. He'll let the clutch out, see if he can find the fire, and that's going to give a big advantage to Bobby Rahal.
A tough break there. They finally find fire in the car. Michael, though, moving away very slowly down pit lane, costing valuable time. Now he's got the car up to speed. Here comes Mario Andretti, meanwhile, in for his stop.
Well, it's obvious as we watch Mario Andretti's crew go to work that the pits, the work in the pits, is very well going to determine who wins this race. We thought Michael Andretti had it all but sewed up. He had a miscue in the pits. We thought Emerson Fittipaldi had a shot until he had a miscue in the pits. That's gone by the boards now, and right behind Bobby Rahal and the PPG pace car is Emerson Fittipaldi. Now let's take a look again at this pit stop by Michael Andretti. He comes in hot because he thought he'd just been spared going a lap down. He may have just overshot his pit just a bit. He sees it at the last minute and locks up the front wheels. There he goes, tries to slide in, but he goes too far. He's underneath the air hose. Now the crew's got to push him back. By now the engine's dead, and here's where a driver has really got to try and keep his composure. Gary Lee.
Well, we're trying to hang on to this tire as long as we can because Goodyear all day has pulled them away out of view. Did not want us to show you. This is what a blistered tire looks like. You know how your tires on your car are all scrubbed up if the car's not handling right, the alignment's not proper? This is what it looks like at 250 or 60 degrees when a Goodyear blisters. This is the trouble all the teams are having this afternoon here at Michigan.
All right, the caution remains on the racetrack. The leader now is Bobby Rahal with Emerson Fittipaldi running in second position. Only 13 laps to go here at Michigan. Here they lie. Bobby Rahal is the leader, Emerson Fittipaldi second, Kevin Kogan is up to third, Roberto Moreno fourth, and Mario Andretti is fifth. The average speed of the race, 185.91, being slowed by this caution period caused by Scott Brayton's blown engine. Now, Michael Andretti is back in sixth position. However, we expect a penalty because he ran over the air hose.
All right, here's how CART works that. As we watch the replay once again, Michael Andretti clearly in violation of the CART rules. Very shortly, he will run over his air hose. He locks it up twice, and there's the infraction, right over the hose. Now, they won't give him the penalty until the race goes back to green flag action. Then, most likely, he will be called in for a stop-and-go penalty. So it's not a case that CART has not assessed the penalty yet. They only assess a stop-and-go under green flag conditions. We've seen this so many times under caution where they've waited and waited and waited until the track's gone back to green. So it's only a question of time before Michael Andretti will have to pay for the infraction.
And we're going back green when they come down this next time. I think, Jack, that Emerson Fittipaldi has a real shot at winning this race. It's going to be a battle to the finish, we believe, between Rahal and Emerson Fittipaldi. There they are. Kevin Kogan could definitely also play a factor in the outcome of this race. Let's go to Gary very quickly while we go green.
Well, apparently there will not be a penalty because he slid over it with the locked up front tires, did not touch it with the rear tires, so we were told there will be no stop-and-go penalty for Michael Andretti.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, the rule states that you can't run over your air hose. I didn't know that you could only run over it with your front tires and not your rear tires. But we're back to some really great racing here. Bobby Rahal got the shot on the restart, and he's pulled to about a 2-second advantage over Emerson Fittipaldi.
Yeah, he certainly has. It wasn't as good a restart for Emerson as it was for Bobby, and Rahal has pulled out to a nice... Oh, yeah, a car against the wall in turn number 3. A.J. Foyt scrapes the wall. He didn't really hit it, but just got up and scraped it, and I don't think he did any damage to the car, although he is slowing, coming through the tri-oval here. No caution, a close moment for A.J. Foyt.
He almost white-walled the side of that car, but he gathered it back in, and now he's picking up speed again. Let's take a look at the tail end of it. As A.J. Foyt really had his hands full. Now, he'll creep into the top of the... There he is. A.J. was right up against the wall. Actually didn't hit the wall, but came just a fraction of an inch away from it.
We were watching Michael Andretti pass some cars there on the inside of the racetrack as A.J. Foyt was going high and getting just a little bit out of shape.
Now, back to the battle for the front position. Rahal gained the advantage on the restart. Shades of Indianapolis 500 time when he came up through the gearbox so quickly there for the victory. And now it looks like he's got a good size advantage in the waning moments here over Emerson Fittipaldi.
But Michael Andretti is coming up quickly. There he is right behind Rick Mears. Michael going to the inside of Mears in turn number 4. He's looking for second position. He's already up to third now. Emerson Fittipaldi in the red and white car is ahead of him in second. So Michael still has a shot at winning this race. We have completed 118 laps. They're on the 119th out of 125. So there is still time for Michael Andretti to win this race.
No need to hold anything back. If you're going to blister a tire now's the time to do it. Michael Andretti knows the challenge that lies ahead of him, but first he's got to navigate around Emerson Fittipaldi. Let's see how Andretti tries to set Fittipaldi up. As they come to the start-finish line, he is right there, goes downstairs, and will also time his lap as he takes over second position.
And now the only position he has to find is that top position. There is one car between himself and Bobby Rahal, the leader. That is Ed Pym, but he's going to dispose of Ed at the end of the backstretch going into turn number 3, or at least would like to, but Pym moves the car down low on the racetrack, the groove that Michael had in mind, so Andretti has to, for the time being, get off the accelerator. Now we'll see what happens. There it is, a 33.7-second lap, and that translates to about 213.5 miles an hour.
Now, in a hare and hound situation like this, with Bobby Rahal playing the role of the hare, his pit crew plays a very important role, Bob. Not only on the radio does he have to keep him apprised of how fast he is running, but he also, by way of the pit board, has to be kept apprised of how quick Michael Andretti is closing upon him. They know the laps are running out, and they've got to calculate just how quickly can he close. Now, let's get a lap time on Bobby Rahal and compare it to that of Michael Andretti, who now holds down that second position.
Again, it was about a 214.5 mile an hour lap for Michael Andretti. We'll see how Rahal is doing. If Rahal can hold on for the victory, it will be his third consecutive IndyCar victory. He was the winner at Mid-Ohio. He won at Sanair. Of course, there was no race last weekend at Elkhart Lake, Road America, because of bad weather. That was postponed until this coming Saturday. There it is, 33.7, so they're running identically the same speed.
And that's got to make Bobby Rahal feel very, very good. If he can maintain that, then he doesn't have a problem. But now the question is, and you heard Gary Lee tell us, the only car that has not experienced fire problems today of the front stereo has been this car, Bobby Rahal. So far, so good.
The True Sports Budweiser March of Bobby Rahal has a 3.2-second lead on Michael Andretti, and there is Michael now with clear racetrack between himself and Bobby. However, the laps are closing down. 123 have been completed. Next time they'll get the white flag, and Mario has a problem in 6th place.
Tough break for Mario Andretti. He will not be able to finish this race. That'll hurt him in the points chase. Meanwhile, Bobby Rahal is setting himself up to see starter Nick Pinaro display that brilliant white flag, signifying 1 lap to go in this event. Rahal hurtling out of turn 4. Here he comes in the start-finish stripe.
And the white flag is displayed. Bobby Rahal has 1 more lap to go. 1 more trip around this 2-mile tri-oval. Mario Andretti limps into the pit area.
And if Bobby Rahal can stay and win this, he'll become a millionaire for this season. Going into this race, $973,000 plus, and the winner's share here today will put him well over the $1 million mark.
And that's just in 1 season. It'll also be Bobby Rahal's 5th win of 1986. Here he is out of turn number 4 onto the tri-oval. Bobby Rahal from Dublin, Ohio wins the Pepsi-Cola 250 at Michigan International Speedway. Michael finishes in 2nd position. The battle for 3rd is a wheel-to-wheel with one. Emerson Fittipaldi got 3rd over Kevin Kogan by about a front wing.
Even less than that. Very, very close. While we concentrated on Rahal's run for the victory, it was an incredible run for that 3rd position.
There is Steve Horn, the crew chief on the Rahal machine, taking off the headset and saying, well, this one's over, and by golly, we've done it again. Rahal, winner of the Pepsi-Cola 250, his 3rd consecutive IndyCar victory and the 5th win of 1986.
You have got to give a lot of credit to Bobby Rahal's crew chief, Steve Horn. He has maintained a lot of composure all year long. They've made calculated gambles. They've set the car up. They've run well on the road courses, on the super speedways, and they are really, you'd have to say, they're the juggernaut going into the points chase the last 4 races now for the season.
Now, Steve Horn has also, of course, had some very trying personal experiences with the loss of Jim Truman and that the entire racing operation being turned over to Steve. But, boy, he has made things work for Bobby Rahal. I'd like to talk with him in Victory Lane after these messages. He's won here at Michigan this afternoon.
Congratulations, Bobby. Your one question was, what was our fastest lap? Obviously, it was fast enough.
Well, you know, the whole race, the car handled pretty good. See, this one's blistered, and I was having to sort of just not lean on things would come our way, and they did.
In racing, you have become over the years Mr. October, the last. Obviously, a very happy crew down here. Congratulations, Bobby. Your one question was, what was our fastest lap? Obviously, it was fast enough.
Well, you know, the whole race, the car handled pretty good, but we blistered a tire, and as you can see, this one's blistered, and I was having to sort of just not lean on the car too much and just hope things would come our way, and they did.
In racing, you have become over the years Mr. October. The last half of the season was your half. This year, you've put it all together all season long, and congratulations on becoming a millionaire this season.
Well, it's super, and I just owe this all to my crew and the Budweiser, Steve Horn, everybody here. There's nobody better. The pit stops are fantastic, and the car stayed beneath me the whole day, and you can't ask for much more than that.
Here's part of the brain trust right here. Let's get Steve Horn, the team manager, on. Congratulations, Steve.
Thank you. It was a really exciting race.
All right, let's go back upstairs. We'll try to get a word later with Michael Andretti.
All right, and our Winner's Circle interview has been brought to you by Goodyear Eagles. You either have Goodyear Eagles or you need them. So Bobby Rahal wins again. Michael Andretti finishes second, followed by Fittipaldi, Kogan, and Sneva. We'll be right back.
Michael, how many times have we said a race can be won or lost in the pit area? It was that last pit stop that cost you.
Well, we had to do it because my right front tire was coming apart. We made an adjustment in the last pit stop, and we went too much the one way because I was blistering my right rear, and they went a little bit too far in the adjustment, and I started blistering the right front. So it was coming apart, and I don't think it would have made the end of the race, so I had to come in.
You slid over the air hose with your front tires. There was some concern as to whether there would be a penalty assessed. Was there any question in the cockpit?
I really didn't know. I didn't even know I ran over it. You know, when I came in, the thing wasn't going to stop because the right front was so blistered, and it didn't, you know, it didn't work. The brakes didn't work quite as well.
At least it was not an engine problem. You went the distance and got some valuable points in second place.
Oh, yeah, you know, it was a real good race for us, I think. You know, we came away with 17 points, which that's still a lot of points. You know, we would have loved to win it, but we just want to keep finishing.
Still got a long ways to go before it's all over.
That's right.
Nice ride in second, Michael Andretti.
Thank you.
They'll be running at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin in the weather-postponed event this coming Saturday. Then we'll have live coverage of Laguna Seca. We'll also have coverage of the next to the last race in Phoenix, Arizona, as the IndyCar season winds down and that points battle continues to be a very good one. There are the top 5 finishers here this afternoon. That battle for third was an excellent one. Fittipaldi beat Kogan by just about a nose, and Sneva finished 5th. We'll be back right after this. Race summary indicates that the race took 1 hour, 22 minutes, and 33 seconds to run at an average speed of 181.58 miles an hour. We had 7 leaders, 9 lead changes, 3 caution periods, no accidents for a total of 19 laps. The new point standings, Bobby Rahal came in with a 1-point lead, has a little bit of breathing room now. He has 128. Michael has 119. Danny Sullivan with 108. Al Jr., who was an early retiree today, remains in 4th position with 107. And then Mario Andretti with 102 points. The 1987 CART PPG IndyCar World Series schedule was announced today, and it contains a few interesting little notes. Long Beach will continue to open the season, followed by Phoenix, then the Indianapolis 500. Milwaukee retains the date after Indianapolis, and then Portland.
But the thing that's interesting is the next series. You see the Meadowland, Cleveland, Toronto, Michigan, and Pocono. What they've done is no racetrack now has more than 1 race, because when we get to the next set of races on the schedule, in the fall schedule, you've got Elkhart Lake, then Mid-Ohio, and there's the new racetrack, a 1-mile racetrack in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania International Raceway, recently purchased by Roger Penske. That'll be run on September 20th. There is no second race here at Michigan, so this was the first 250-miler since 1974, and the last one, because we'll see Laguna Seca and then, of course, Miami. And the thing that was quite interesting when they made the announcement, Bob, as we see Bobby Rahal continuing to get the accolades, was the fact that CART has announced that their intentions is they have dropped Sanair off the race schedule, and that Dallas will not be on the schedule. A lot of talk that Dallas would be run in 87, at least, possibly 88. According to John Prasco, there are no plans at this time to increase that schedule. They feel that's what they need, even though it's a tad weak when you get into October and November. There are a lot of holes there, probably to fill in if there's a rain delay or a rain cancellation earlier in the season.
All right, very quickly, let's wrap up this air hose question that we had on Michael Andretti's pit stop.
Okay, as we understand it now, and the CART people have informed us that the rule, or the essence of the rule, is as follows. You are assessed a stop-and-go penalty if you run over your air hose. And the way they determine if you've run over it or not, is if the front wheels and the rear wheels go over it. As we see Michael Andretti, he's got to be a very happy fellow because only the front wheels locked up and skimmed over the air hose. That's the reason they did not bring him in for a for a stop-and-go penalty.
But it was a very costly stop